Welcome back, listeners, to Community Life Podcast, Life in Canada, Episode 18. My name is Jane Teasdale, one of the principal owners of Mosaic Home Care and Community Resource Centre. Our organization focuses on person-centered care and social connection. I would like to welcome our guest today, Daniel Rubinoff. And Daniel is no stranger to Mosaic. He has come and presented on his Rimbala classes many, many times at Mosaic. So welcome, Daniel. Thank you for coming online today.
It's such a great pleasure, Jane, to be back and embraced by this wonderful Mosaic family.
It is. It's a busy family. Let me put it that way, with loads of events going on and social connections and really having a lot of our facilitators of different people, from art to music to dance to theater to drumming circles. So we're really happy that you're online today. And before I get started, I just wanted to welcome Daniel and just a little bit of a bio about Daniel, which I'll have to read off. Daniel Rubinoff completed his PhD at York University and wrote a dissertation on the eurythmics method of Émile Jacques Delcroze. He was awarded a doctoral fellowship through the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, and he completed extensive archival and paleological research in Geneva at the Institute of Jacques Delcroze. Daniel is an accomplished professional musician and currently holds a position of music director at Lawrence Park Community Church, where he offers beginning and advanced level Rimbala classes. So welcome again, Daniel. And my first question is, what is actual Rimbala classes and how do you provide that?
That's a great question, because this word Rimbala, I mean, what does it mean? It sounds so exotic and perhaps a little bit mysterious. It really comes out of my fascination with music and movement. And as you alluded to in that very generous introduction, Jane, I have a fascination with Émile Jacques Delcroze, this incredible Swiss music educator, composer, who came up with this idea. He was really interested in training young paraprofessional musicians in Geneva, and he felt they were too technical and they didn't have enough soul. They didn't have enough music within them. And he intuited, and then later, with a team of doctors and other scientifically minded people, he realized that the first instrument to train for all of us, whether we're going to become professional musicians or music appreciators, is to train the body. The body is the first musical instrument. And I became fascinated with that as a professional musician, a young professional musician who was always on the search, always on the hunt for how to make my music more expressive and more my own. And when I came to the world of Émile Jacques Delcroze in Toronto, Canada, it changed my life, and I was never quite the same. And so I ended up going to Geneva and sort of immersing myself in it. And I'll tell that story a little bit later, but long story short, this idea of Rimbala is really taking what I've learned from Émile Jacques Delcroze, coupled with my lifelong interest in Taoism, this ancient Chinese spiritual and physicalized discipline, the Alexander technique, which many musicians and actors study, and other somatic disciplines, to create my own music and movement program for seniors, for older adults, to whom I owe so much of my formative years. So RIM is a short form for rhythm, which is arguably the most important aspect of music, and Bala for, of course, balance. So it became for me a sort of a way for me to give back to the older generation. The older generation really speaks to me in the form of intimate mentorship. So when one studies music and becomes a professional musician, there is usually a lineage of musicians who have helped this younger person attain the status and the skill that they have. And so for me, it's been a way of giving back to this wonderful community of elders.
All right. Doesn't matter what I could
could have said sun, moon, and stars, right? Why don't you come to a place where you can move to and fro? So I say sun, moon, and stars. Say that with me. Sun, moon, and stars. Yeah, which one of those sounds, moon and stars, is the longest? Sun, moon, and stars. Can you really elongate stars and show me stars in the sky with these little beautiful things you have? Most of you have 10, right? Sun, moon, and stars. Sun, moon, and stars. Good. We're going to do it one more time. Sun, moon, and stars. This time I want you to clap this rhythm. Just feel it in your mind. Speak it in your mind. Moving to and fro. Right? You ready to clap? Ready? Here we go. Sing it with me. Sun, moon, and stars. Sun, moon, and stars. Gorgeous. Keep going. Sun, moon, and stars. We're on the gateway of improvisation. The voice, we also have that association, right? Why do we have association?
No, thank you for that explanation. And, I've done over the years, and since I was younger, I was involved, in ballet classes and a bit of creative movement and modern dance. So, in modern dance, you're using space and you're using, your body and movement. Is that sort of similar, a little bit similar than Rimbala, sort of? Or what do you find are the differences between modern creative and Rimbala?
That's a great point. And I think if someone were to watch a Rimbala class, they might say, wow, that looks like sort of a form of creative dance. And indeed, this idea of music and movement in dance, these are we're all coming from the same family. And it's interesting that Dalcroze had sort of a love-hate relationship with dancers. That sounds kind of strong. He was very attracted to Isadora Duncan, who was really bringing the dancer back to this Greek conception of the whole body, using the whole body. His critique of dancers was that they often were more interested in their beautiful form and the beautiful gestures and less interested in following quite closely to the music. Of course, the greatest dancers in the world have that embodied. And in fact, Dalcroze was highly influential on the American modern dance movement. So, there is this connection. The difference is, in a Rimbala class, we're following the music to the letter of the law, so to speak. So we're developing a regularized beat, but we're also applying all the different elements of music, whether they are rhythm, harmony, orchestration, mood, affect, counterpoint. So all of these things are going on. So the attention, or what is in the foreground of a Rimbala class, is the music. And then the movements are derived out of it. I don't have a professional dance background, but I'm very sensitized to how to move my body through music.
And the music. I think we're going to make reference to, you do have some video links on your website. Can you just let everyone know your website contact information?
Yes, they can approach me in a number of different ways. Probably the best way to at least get a sense of the work through some video clips is on www.rimbala.com. Rimbala.com, lowercase. And you can send me a note, you can watch videos, you can get a little bit more textual background on exactly what we do in a class. And of course, we have the video clips. And the video clips really try to paint a picture. That expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A video might be worth 1,000,000 words in this case. You're going to see a group of seniors who are having fun. I mean, that is one of the most important things, that idea of joy. The idea of interactivity. That's another kind of a difference between dance and Rimbala, that they're actually interacting with each other because, of
Right.
course, music is really a metaphor for the interactivity. If you look at
Yes.
a chamber music group or the Toronto Symphony, for example. So that's very, very interesting. But you'll also hear the Rimbala instructor improvising the music. So this idea of having fresh musical experiences on a quite regular, although gradual and gentle basis is really important for the development of neuroplasticity. In order to have neuroplasticity, we need change. The change needs to be gradual. The seniors are getting some form of physical movement. Sometimes they're in a chair. There's a lot of singing. And we know that singing and movement is excellent for the brain. In fact, it's almost like a July 1st fireworks that's going off in the brain, which is helping to prevent falling, because we know that falling, there's about 12 different things going on when we fall. A lot of people don't realize that what is happening when we walk are a series of processes that are of the brain. They're cognitive and physical. So music retunes the older adult who's at a far greater risk for falling, and through regularized beat, through multitasking, all with the focus of really being able to embody the music that is being improvised and changed. So there's a lot of changing elements in a Rimbala class, but we try to keep it fun and light, and we have a myriad of activities going on in a class.
So this also keeps people engaged, socially engaged, and it's fun to go to a class, listen to music, and also do some dancing and connection. There are benefits of music and dance for our physical and mental health, as noted in a blog from the University of Essex in the UK. The benefits of music and dance for our physical and mental health. And some of the research found music is often used to regulate mood, mental arousal, emotional state, and to evoke memories. It is present in every culture in the world and has ancient roots. Elite athletes have been known to listen to music before competitions and in warm-ups and training sessions, because during physical activity, listening to music can produce mental genetic benefits for us. And it has also been reported to increase positive and reduce negative mood and help with relaxation. So in fact, yesterday, Mosaic had our Movement, Minds and Magic and a dance program through Jennifer Hicks. And it was just, there must have been about 25 or 30 people in that dance program, which is at Armour Heights. And it was just incredible to watch. They were doing a little bit of creative movement as well. And people coming together, doing dance moves and using their bodies and exercise. It was just incredible. Everybody was having fun. Everybody was laughing. So it certainly changes your mood, I think, when you are participating in these programs. And do you have any other comments, Daniel, about, sort of that research that I provided above? At all?
Yeah, we are living in truly extraordinary times, Jane. This research is really, really important. And I want to say, too, that, seniors, older adults, whatever term you want to use, we are lucky because we are in an era where there are a lot of different programs. And, my program is not going to appeal to everyone. Sometimes a more dance-based program is going to appeal to others. And I think it's great. And I love learning myself. I mean, I'm almost 60, so I'm getting up there, but I'm constantly looking at what is around, and I think it's a great time to be alive. And this Exeter research is really, really important because it's speaking to the emotional benefits, and we know that singing and moving, these types of activities really increase dopamine, endorphins in the body. They're being measured. In fact, there's a very famous singer, you probably have heard of her, Renee Fleming, and I know that she has just recently done some incredible work with neuroscientists, I believe, in New York. And her work is, I think, about performance anxiety. So there's one of the great singers of our day, and she's doing some wonderful things with the brain. And I want to speak to that because not only do music and movement, singing, provide emotional benefits, which are, of course, very important with this epidemic of the mental health issues, But also, there's a huge neurological benefit. And this is why we're getting such high falls prevention numbers. I believe we have the highest falls prevention numbers in the world. It's a Dalcroze Eurythmics randomized double-blind trial that reduced the incidence of falls by 54%. That's an
That's
unbelievable
incredible.
figure. Yeah, it is. It's an unbelievable figure, and my work is based upon that study. But it's really interesting because often in a class I'll be improvising in a way, and I'll say to my seniors, "Okay, when the music stops, you have to stop." And this is a very important thing. I've been speaking to neurologists about this, and this idea that if someone has cognitive decline, we don't know if they're going to go on and have dementia, but when they do the neurological test, they're testing for their ability to inhibit themselves, to prevent themselves from doing something. At the other end of that stick is initiation, right? The French would call this incitation. And this is important because we're trying to prevent ourselves from doing things that are going to harm us on a physical plane. But we also need to be able to have a platform where we can begin a gesture. And so Rimbala is really all about that, all about these different types of controls, controlling our way through space, because the stimulus of the music comes in, it has to be decoded in the brain, so there's lots of great brain work going on. But then the senior's not just sitting there listening to the music. There's nothing wrong with that. We know that when we listen to music, we get stimulation of the motor cortex. But if the motor cortex is engaged and the fine and the gross motor skills of the senior need to be engaged, locomoting or moving through space, or sometimes in seated activities, they're getting a lot more benefit. And they're also getting a multitask benefit. And we know multitasking is extremely important to prevent falls. Because as I
Yes.
said earlier, there's 12 different things roughly going on when we walk. So we have to be able to multitask in a very, very gradual way, and in a way that does have a focus. The focus is healthy walking, where the gait has been re-regularized, like you're walking like a 25-year-old woman, and the beat of the music is doing that. But many other things have to occur so that we don't fall.
I think that's great. I think, physiotherapists and all that falls prevention, we really need to look at what, the benefits of Rimbala. And actually, I'm doing a presentation in the middle of March to a group of seniors on falls prevention. So I think I'm going to talk a little bit about Rimbala and show some of your work with that.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Really.
So my next question, you are an accomplished musician. So how do you implement your musical expertise into your Rimbala program?
That's a great question, and I'm going to maybe approach it from a sociological perspective. My father's a philosopher, and his early adult friend was the great sociologist Gregory Baum, who was interested in the sociology of theology. But I'm more interested in it from the sociological aspects of being a professional musician. Musicians are often very isolated. We're sort of cloistered from society. We have to spend hours at our instruments. And so this idea of giving back and being part of a community. I mean, I'm very fortunate and blessed. I'm part of a wonderful church here, Lawrence Park Community Church, where I'm the director of music. And it was Christopher Small, the great musicologist, who said, musicians of yesteryear, the ancient musicians, they were part of the community. And we see this in African cultures and various other places around the world. This idea of the separation of the artist is very much a Western ideal. It really came out of the 19th century. Mm. So for me, as a kind of an extroverted person, I need people around me. And so the idea of being able to give back and to be able to exercise my improvisatory skills, my needs for personal expression through my body, because I do believe that Dalcroze was right, that the most expressive musicians, you've heard of that expression, you could tell that music was infused throughout their body when we look at the great performers, Yo-Yo Ma.
Yes, Yo-Yo Ma is amazing.
Exactly. Yes, I mean his whole body, his whole being is infused in the music, and so for me, I'm very fortunate that I can give back. I can be very creative in developing new exercises, activities, and games for the seniors. I'm improvising, which is a gateway to personal composition. I'm improving my voice. I'm involving people. So I'm developing this kind of community as well. And I'm able to use Rimbala in really interesting places. So it's not just for falls prevention, although that would be enough. But
Yes.
I'm also using it with music appreciation. Because people are starting to also get the benefit of, oh, I didn't know music really. I didn't know what inside the music there was. There was orchestration, there was harmony, and I can react to that. The wonderful myriad of things that are happening in music. We call these musical parameters, but they're all there and they're function just sort of like the cells of the body. They're all kind of tuning with each other in order to create this great result, a piece of music.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I think, academics are certainly looking at music and movement and dance, that it is beneficial to individuals. And just, just to put in another thing that Mosaic did in the community, which was at Evergreen Brickworks. We were chosen to do an intergenerational dance party, and it was incredible. So we had new moms and babies right up to older adults, in their hundreds, and people with disabilities all coming out and all dancing together and having fun. 2B1 is the music trio that we usually use for like the bigger events, and they did a tremendous job. And it was just so nice to see that connection of all ages coming together and dancing. There were people with dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and, everyone was having a great time. So definitely music really lifts you up, and you can be more engaging and socializing as well.
Absolutely.
And, I do know that you do a lot of community events, at different places around the community. Can you list some that you've been doing and where, some of your programs are located?
Absolutely. So I sort of divide my time with Rimbala between two different types of older adult populations. One is a population of folks who are in retirement homes. And that's a very, very important one for me because their lives have been changed. And I want to say there's some incredible seniors homes. I'm working for Chartwell right now, actually quite close to where I live, a wonderful place called the Sumac.
Yes, they have wonderful programs there. We've done
it's really, really, really terrific. And I have a weekly class. They've taken it very seriously, and we get between 10 and 20 seniors. And I'm doing some very advanced things with them. Mixed meter. We do a lot of solfège, which is the French ear training system. It's all part of the program. So you can take a beginning Rimbala class, which they've all done, and then you can sort of graduate into higher levels. I'm also in Cogier homes as well. And that's been absolutely fantastic. So that's kind of like the bread and butter. I've trained a few Rimbala instructors as well because it's getting too big for me to handle by myself. But then the other program, the other population is the community dwelling senior. These are folks who are in their homes. And this is an extremely important population as well because, of course, they're trying to stay in their homes. And I know that you know much more than I do about aging in place and this whole notion as a country and indeed as a society that we want that. And so it's extremely important for them. So I am at my church, Lawrence Park Community Church, and that class is actually on Zoom because I find now that seniors, I have people coming who are Zooming in
Yes.
from Hamilton and Ottawa and Peterborough, and so this is an extremely important thing, and I can give them a lot of attention if the numbers are small because I don't need to rely on it. The classes are in a sense non-synchronous. In other words, I can be at home improvising and watching the Rimbala participants. So I'm also at Rosedale United Church. They have a wonderful hub program. So that's on Wednesday mornings. And then Thursday morning, I'm at Metropolitan United Church right downtown. at Church and Queen, and I think a lot of these churches are trying to sort of reach out to the community,
Yes.
and it's a great thing.
Yes.
And I remember years ago when I was studying, I was in England. I remember going down to the bottom of St. Martin in the Fields.
Oh, yes, St. Martin. They've had a lot of great, performances and pianists playing at St. Martin's in the Fields. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do. They have an amazing music program. But what was more interesting for me even than that was going down to the basement and seeing guilds, medieval guild. I mean,
Yeah.
things that have been around for hundreds of years. And I remember coming back to my church and saying, "Gee, we should be doing the same thing. We need to turn this into a community center."
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's happening now, and these creative places are really getting involved and reaching out to people.
Yes.
And that's really what it's all about.
And so just an example of that is Armor Heights Presbyterian Church. So Mosaic actually leases from that church, and it's a perfect space for us to have our social programs, our events, and then upstairs we have our corporate offices as well. So I think you're right. I think we need to use these spaces to create a community, and it is creating community hubs all over the city. And Daniel, how would somebody get in touch with you? I just want to go over your website again, or email, or however you want to do that, if they wanted to connect and sign up for these programs. So how would they go about doing that?
Sure, there are a number of different ways. I mean, probably the easiest for most folks on this podcast would be to go to my website. And again, I can put it down. It's Rimbala, R-I-M, like Mary, B like Bob, A-L-A, rimbala.com. And you can send me a note through there. There's a contact page. I also have a Facebook page, Rimbala. I'm also on Instagram.
Okay.
And, oftentimes I receive requests from the children of older adults.
Oh, interesting. Yes, the family
Yeah.
caregivers.
Absolutely. Maybe the senior has had a fall. Maybe they're interested in putting them into a home, and does the home have a Rimbala class? So I'm at Rimbala Doctor. That's my Instagram. But you can reach me, Rubinoff Daniel at gmail.com. I don't mind giving out my email. That's fine. You can do that. So there are a lot of different ways of getting a hold of me.
And just on that note, we will be featuring Daniel and an introduction to Rimbala at our community hub at Armor Heights Presbyterian Church. And the date for that is June the 11th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. And if you're interested in that program, you can email us at info@mosaichomecare.com, or check our website out for our spring-summer events at www.mosaichomecare.com. And Daniel, I do know that you've been around the world as a musician. Your expertise and the love of music has taken you to many countries around the world. And can you discuss some of those places that were your favorite?
Well, I was very fortunate in my mid-20s to go to Bordeaux, France. And I know that you and I share a love of that part of the world. And I was able to study with one of the great classical saxophonists of all time, Jean-Marie Landex. And this is a very strange thing for me, because he was talking about how to interpret on the saxophone. And he mentioned this wonderful French theorist named Matisse Lucy. And Lucy was actually one of Jacques Dalcroze's teachers when he went to Paris. Wow. And Dalcroze was highly influenced. So little did I know, it's almost a bit like being in some kind of nonlinear time machine, something that maybe Joseph Campbell might talk about. But it was very, almost like a circularity, that he was mentioning something that would become such an important part of my life as a Rimbala person, as the creator of this music and movement method. But there it was, of course, focused on how to be a more expressive saxophonist. So it was just amazing to see people living that way. And I was fortunate enough to teach Rimbala in Nantes many, many years later. And so I've always had a love of the elegance of the French culture, and how deeply they go into something and really, really investigate. And this idea is very, very important, because music is a really wonderful stimulator of this executive control, this executive function. And I think that Landex gave me a taste of that, certainly when I was there. I've also enjoyed Barcelona, and I remember being there. They have a wonderful Delcros program there. Historically they did a lot of work with the blind population as well. They're very, very famous for that. But I remember being on the street in Gracia, and I was living near a daycare, and all of these mothers and fathers just came out, and they were spontaneous dancing in the street, much like you were describing.
That's amazing. It. Yes.
So I really had a wonderful sense. And then, of course, Geneva, Switzerland, I mean, being taken into the room with these 80 and 90-year-old women who were moving like women in their 20s and 30s. And they were the pride that the Genevois had for this work, because the geriatricians came in, the famous Dr. Rito Kressig eventually did this wonderful randomized double-blind trial. But, to be able to be a part of that, and to be part of that inspiration, to see how it affected. Of course, Delcros Eurythmics is taught to small children. We have programs, so it really is from the cradle to the grave. And these women were the grandparents of students, and they just kept taking it. Wow. So they ended up in their 80s and 90s. And their teacher, Mademoiselle Neff, I mean, she was teaching up till, I think, 104. Wow. So it was like, oh my gosh, I could be doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And just another point, have you done any intergenerational work with different ages in Rimbala? Is that
funny.
Something you're looking at, or?
Well, I mean, it's funny. There are some seniors' homes. I believe there was a Verve Senior Living Home in Mississauga, and they were brilliant, because what they did was they had a daycare attached to the seniors' home. What a brilliant thing.
That is a brilliant thing.
It's like systemic,
yes,
generational work. And I remember I'm sure we brought the children in. I think it's great, because I love working with kids too, but when children and seniors are mixed, it's absolutely fantastic. And on another note, I did have some young students in their 20s interested in creating an app for me, so a Rimbala app, which maybe someday we'll have. But they came in to see, what the heck is Rimbala?
Rimbala.
And this was a few years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and they had trouble with the exercises. And in fact, some of the seniors were far more advanced than what they could do. And it was a humbling experience for them, and a gobsmacking moment for me that we all kind of need this. And so I've had a lot of interest in the sort of 40 to 50-year-old population. We need to proact, because if we can have these experiences now, then our neuroplasticity, neurogenesis, protection against falling will already be in place by the time you hit 60, for example.
Oh, interesting. All great work that you're doing, and all very exciting. And we're so looking forward to having you at Mosaic on June the 11th. So I'd just like to thank our listeners for coming online today or watching our video, our Community Life and Podcast. And at this time, I usually ask our guest if they want to leave a takeaway message. So is there anything you want to leave our listeners with, Daniel?
Oh, it's so difficult to come up with one thing, but I just want to say that our golden years should be a time of rediscovery of our very nature, and a time for tuning and balancing for the worlds to come. And we should celebrate and revitalize our aging bodies and brains with the rejuvenating, healing quality of music, a music that restores and improves the cognitive self, the physical self, the emotional self, and the social self. And I have to say, as the son of a philosopher, my father, Lionel, was very fond of Dylan Thomas. And I remember my father reciting this poem to me, and I think it's sort of a credo, or at least a form of inspiration for us all. So this is Dylan Thomas. Aww. Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light.
Interesting. Very thought-provoking. Very interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And it was a pleasure to have you online, definitely. I mean, I've known you for many years now, I don't know how many years, but quite a number when we were at the Shops on Steels.
Exactly.
And I think, within Mosaic, we have wonderful facilitators that have been working with us for the last 14 years and hopefully will continue on working with us. And you're one of those individuals.
Thank you so much, Jane, for all that you do. And your concept of person-centered, that's so at the heart of Rimbala, because music is supposed to tune humanity.
Yes.
And you're already doing that with all of the different programs.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. But I do love music and movement and dance and, keeping people moving as opposed to just sitting and listening to music is, if they can, getting up and moving and enjoying themselves. And I think that's what Mosaic does. So Absolutely. Until our next Mosaic's Life in Canada podcast, this is Jane Teasdale signing off. For information on Mosaic, you can check out our website at www.mosaichomecare.com. And thank you.